Tensions between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky are in the higher point since Trump took office. Trump has announced a meeting with Vladimir Putin in Alaska next week to discuss a possible peace deal for Ukraine, and he says territorial swaps could be part of the plan. Zelensky rejected the idea immediately, stating that Ukraine will not give up any land to Russia. The disagreement has opened a clear diplomatic rift between the two leaders, just days before Trump sits down with Putin. The path to this confrontation started with a Russian plan that Trump says he is willing to consider. Vladimir Putin recently put forward a two-phase proposal aimed at ending active hostilities. In the first phase, Ukraine would withdraw its forces from the Donetsk region. This would effectively freeze the current front line and give Russia full control of Donetsk and Luhansk, as well as formal recognition of the annexed Crimean Peninsula. The second phase would involve a final peace agreement, negotiated first between Trump and Putin, and only later with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Uncertainty remains over other contested regions, particularly Zaporizhzhia and Kherson, where Russian troops still occupy parts of the territory. Together, these regions hold some of the most valuable mineral reserves in Europe. Ukraine has over 20,000 registered deposits of minerals and metals, with nearly 9,000 confirmed as economically viable. A large share of these is concentrated in the territories now at the center of the conflict. These areas contain Europe's largest reserves of rare earth elements, as well as significant quantities of lithium, graphite, titanium, and uranium. Such resources are critical for advanced manufacturing, aerospace technology, and modern weapon systems. Control over these deposits would allow Russia to secure long-term access to materials needed for its defense industry, while also reducing dependence on imports from countries like China. For Ukraine, losing these territories would mean giving up decades of potential economic recovery, foreign investment, and strategic leverage in global markets. When Trump confirmed his meeting with Putin in Alaska, Zelensky was not included. For Ukraine, this raised the prospect of key decisions on its future being made without its direct participation, a scenario made even more dangerous by how dependent Kyiv has become on U.S. military support. Ukraine's war effort depends heavily on the United States. Since 2022, Washington has been Kyiv's primary supplier of advanced weapon systems, ammunition, intelligence, and training. Long-range missile systems, air defense batteries, armored vehicles, and critical battlefield logistics have all come largely from American stockpiles. Without this level of support, Ukraine's military capacity would shrink rapidly. Offensive operations would become harder to sustain, and even basic defense could be compromised over time. While European allies have stepped up aid, their combined industrial output and logistical reach still fall short of what the U.S. provides. Losing full U.S. backing would also weaken Ukraine's negotiating position. If Washington signals readiness to accept territorial compromises, other allies may follow, leaving Kyiv more isolated diplomatically. This could pressure Zelensky into talks from a position of weakness, the very scenario Ukraine has sought to avoid since the first day of the war. Even so, Zelensky's options are limited. He can try to rally stronger European support, seek deeper defense ties with regional partners like Poland, or appeal to public opinion in the West. But without Washington's military and political weight, the balance of power at the negotiating table shifts dramatically in Russia's favor. And that is exactly the outcome Vladimir Putin has been working toward, ensuring that Ukraine remains a state too weak to pose any long-term threat to Russia. From the start of the conflict, Putin's strategic goal has gone beyond controlling specific territories. His broader aim is to shape Ukraine into a state that cannot threaten Russian security or align too closely with NATO. This vision includes keeping Ukraine out of the Western military alliance, limiting its armed forces' size and capabilities, and securing influence over regions critical to Russia's strategic depth. By holding or controlling contested areas like Donbass, Crimea, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson, Moscow would maintain both a physical buffer and economic leverage through their rich resources. Freezing the conflict on Russia's terms would also give Putin valuable time. It would allow for the reorganization and rearmament of Russian forces, consolidation of gains, and integration of captured territories into Russia's political and economic system. This approach mirrors past Russian strategies in Georgia and Moldova, where unresolved conflicts have kept those countries from fully integrating with Western institutions. Ultimately, Putin's preferred end state is a Ukraine economically weakened, militarily constrained, and politically unstable. A neighbor that poses no real risk to Russian security and remains firmly outside NATO's orbit. And while this aligns with Moscow's long-term interests, it also intersects with Donald Trump's immediate political goals. For Trump, the Alaska meeting is not just about foreign policy, it is also about domestic politics. Bringing the war in Ukraine to an end would allow him to present himself as a deal maker who can deliver results where others have failed. A quick resolution could also free up U.S. resources, reduce military spending abroad, and shift attention back to domestic priorities. These points resonate with a portion of the American electorate that questions the cost and duration of U.S. involvement in Ukraine. But there is a political clock ticking. The midterm elections are approaching, and a breakthrough on the international stage could strengthen Trump's position, both within his party and with undecided voters. Ending the war, even through territorial compromises, could be framed as a pragmatic victory that saves lives and restores stability. However, this approach carries significant risks. Allies may see it as rewarding aggression, while Ukraine could view it as a betrayal of its sovereignty. Still, for Trump, the benefits of securing a fast, high-profile agreement may outweigh the long-term strategic costs. And as the leaders prepare to meet in Alaska, the stakes are clear. The outcome could either bring peace or set the stage for the next phase of the conflict. The clash between Trump and Zelensky highlights the deep divide over how the war in Ukraine should end. For Kyiv, any compromise on territory is unacceptable. For Trump, a swift deal, even with concessions, is worth pursuing. Putin, meanwhile, stands to benefit from any agreement that locks in his gains and limits Ukraine's future strength. The Alaska meeting will not just be another round of diplomacy, it could mark a turning point, shaping the balance of power in Eastern Europe for years to come. If you found this analysis useful, remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next reports.